Hi, I'm Caroline Daniel, editor of the Weekend FT, and I'm here to interview Adnan Sarwar, who's the fantastic winner of our Bodley Head Financial Times non-fiction essay award for this year. Adnan, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
A fantastic essay that you submitted for this year's award. It was a British Muslim soldier, and I know all the judges were really impressed by the quality of your writing. Can you just tell us a bit more about the actual piece and how you came to write it?
Well, I joined the army, and one thing I found was it was very, very accepting of different populations, and that was a myth I wanted to get rid of, really, because in my area where I'm from, in Burnley, there was a misconception that the army wasn't accepting. So, and it was a piece about identity, because identity is the big question, I think, today. Where do you belong?
And how, when you wrote the essay, how did people in the army respond to it?
The army really enjoyed it, and I got an email from a friend of mine who's serving in Africa, and just before he went back to Africa, he tried to pick up the FT near Sandhurst, and they'd all sold out because the military had heard about it, so they'd all bought it. And
how do you find that sort of differences between, you know, giving up a life in the army to make the decision to become a writer?
I don't know. There was little pockets of writing through the military. I mean, I wrote a war diary when I was in Iraq in 2003. I used to write for my regimental magazine, and I helped produce a book about my last regiment's regimental history. So there were little pockets of that. But no, I like it. I like writing because I can visit the world I used to be part of.
Yeah. And we spoke a few minutes ago about you also have an aspiration to be an actor. So you know, from the military to writing to acting. So you mentioned something about James Bond.
Yeah, well, acting came about because I was in a bar in Manchester, and I met a girl who had a script, and she asked me to read it. I read it. It wasn't very realistic, so I told her the ins and outs of it, and I got invited onto set, and I found myself teaching actors how to be soldiers. And then the director said, "Do you want to be in it?" And I played soldiers. I've played the Taliban, and then recently for Skyfall, I auditioned for the Bond film. I did a day with the stunt team at Pinewood. I auditioned for Catherine Bigelow's film, and I did a little part at the National Theatre.
Well, I think it's going to be a fascinating story, and obviously great content for whatever you're going to be writing next.
Yeah.
Since the essay has been published in the Financial Times, and obviously soon with Bodley Head, what kind of reaction have you had to the publication of the essay?
Well, there's been a worldwide reaction. I've been getting emails from around the world. There was an economics professor in Norway who wrote to me. There were people in New York. There was people in South Africa, and it's been fantastic hearing those responses and some real emotional responses. And all I can do is tell you my truth, and if you tell me yours, I think we can meet somewhere, and that's what's happening with this.
And in terms of what you'd like to write about next, obviously your focus, I think, is very much on being a writer.
Yeah.
What areas are you pursuing, and what are we going to read from you coming up in the next year?
Well, there's a book that's nearly done on the Iraq War in 2003. So I'm going to revisit that area there, and I've got an idea for another book at the moment.
So your winning essay was an extraordinary piece of writing. I'd be interested to know a bit more about your writing process and how you go about sitting down to start writing something.
Well, I get up very early at 0600 hours, which is Rivali. So I do that. I'm still getting up like a soldier, and I do it in 3-hour stints. So for 3 hours, 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I'll write or I'll read, and then I'll swap it. And then from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, I'll either read or write. So I'll do reading and writing for about 6 hours a day. I do about 1,000 words to 2,000 words a day, and if I don't do a minimum of 1,000 words, I stop calling myself a writer. I'm quite strict with myself on that. So it's all done in the early morning. There's a romantic idea that you can only write really late at night. I don't think that's true.
And is there anyone you model yourself on, or you've learnt from as a writer?
I've only started reading recently, and I started looking at people who take risks. I really like Salman Rushdie for that, for taking risks. And I like emotional writing, so I like people who pull me in that way, and they're generally poets. And the poets that I'm most obsessed with at the moment from the Tang dynasty of China, and it's people like Li Po and Tu Fu.
I think that's a fascinating place for your next book, clearly. Thank you.
Thank you.